Today we're going over 24 things that could only happen in Portland, Oregon. So if you're thinking of moving to Portland or any of its suburbs, these 24 things are really going to encapsulate some funny, weird, quirky things about Portland, Oregon. These are things that you might want to know before moving up here and purchasing a home. And stay to the end because I'm going to tell you a story for number 24 that really summarizes what it is like to live in Portland, Oregon. Let's get going. All right, let's get started with the first thing that you would only see in Oregon. And this actually comes from one of Ryan Trahan's videos where he went to all 50 states and stayed in 50 different Airbnbs. And on his stay in Oregon, he saw a duck walking through a strip mall. But it actually struck me as a uniquely Portland thing that you would expect to see. We live next to so much wildlife that you almost don't even realize that it's not a typical experience for somebody outside of Portland. So the second thing that we're going to talk about here is bicycles. Not just bicycles, but unicycles as well. There's a unicyclist known to roam the streets of Portland wearing a Darth Vader suit, playing a bagpipe with flames shooting out of it. Now that's not the only bicycle-oriented thing in Portland that we're uniquely known for. There's also a naked bicycle ride that happens once a year. So, you know, if you're inviting your conservative grandma from Texas over for a cup of coffee or, you know, going to the cafe downtown, maybe skip that weekend. Because I've had that happen to clients where their grandma saw some butt cheeks they were not expecting to that weekend. So this next one is food carts. I mean, Portland is massively known for its food cart options. We have over 500 food carts in the area, and you get a huge diversity of options. And the thing that I personally like about food carts is if that you're anything like my wife and I, we always have a very difficult time deciding where do we want to eat. Well, with food carts, you can pitch up often at a place with a huge covered area, a beer garden, and then like 10, 20, 30 options ranging from pizza to burgers to Korean soul food. I mean, really anything and everything in between, and at a very affordable price. Okay, the fourth thing we're going to talk about is ADUs because Portland is having a massive ADU renaissance. We're talking no single development charges, and you can have an ADU up to 800 square feet or 75% of your home size, whichever is smaller. But people are using ADUs for Airbnb income, long-term rental income, or even like outdoor offices like the one I have here. And Portland's also relieved system development charges across the board as of just a couple weeks ago. Now this is huge because somebody was asking in the comments just the other day about new construction in Portland proper, like being able to have a new home with walkability. And these development charges, which were a massive burden on builders, have been erased. So expect a lot of new construction to be popping up in the Portland area over the next 3 years, which is where they've extended that time frame. Now, the fifth thing that could only happen in Portland is that we are a massively dog-friendly culture. In fact, we rank in the top 10 dog-friendliest cities time and time again, but you can expect to see dogs inside brew pubs in Portland, Oregon. It's not too uncommon to sit down and get a beer and see like a golden retriever laying on the floor at the table next to you. In fact, there's even water dishes at a lot of establishments because people love to bring their dogs around all over the Portland area. Beyond that, there's over 30 off-leash dog parks in the Portland area, so some people moving up might be surprised about the dog culture that we have up here. Now let's get talking about people getting married at Voodoo Donuts. That's right. I mean, whether you think of Voodoo Donuts as just a tourist trap or if you think it's a staple here to stay in Portland, people will get married at the place known for its maple bacon bars and creative spin on donuts. So if you're looking for a place to tie the knot, Portland has a donut shop available if you're more into those shotgun style Las Vegas weddings. And speaking of tying the knot, this next one is gonna do with tying horses up, and actually the next three is all to do with animals. You're gonna see a lot of animals and nature in this video. But in Portland, there are streets that are just so historic and so old that there's these little metal rings that you'll find on the curbs. and people used to tie their horses to them before you had, modern automobiles. But the funny thing about Portland, because you'll probably see those in other older cities, the thing about Portland that just kind of makes it unique and special is that people will take little toy horses and tie them up to these old historic rings as kind of like a practical running joke. I mean, Portland has a lot of its own little inside jokes like this that you'll kind of become acquainted with as you get to know the city. Now that was number 7, but for number 8 and 9, still animal related. Number 8, weird things you'll find only in Portland is that we have a lot of chickens in our city. You're talking little chicken coops, people with mini urban farms in our area, and chickens are a part of that. You're actually allowed up to 4 chickens per Portland City Code per lot. Now the 9th thing is that people will use goats for mowing their lawn. You don't see goats as often as chickens, but you will see people with pet goats. I used to go to a Boys and Girls Club in Portland where it was kind of a rougher neighborhood, but you could kind of tell that the neighborhood had gentrified because about a decade or 2 later, you actually saw goats coming into that backyard Boys and Girls Club. So goats are definitely a sign that you're in a hip Portland neighborhood. Now, number 10 is all about books. Not only do we have a massive city block dedicated to the Pal City of Books, we also have like tiny little lending libraries in front of people's houses. Now, maybe you've seen these before in your own city, but Portland leads the way in that we have the most lending libraries in any other major city. Now, number 11, right alongside us, kind of leading the way with those lending libraries, is that Portland has got over 30,000 certified backyard habitats. Now, these are gardens that are specifically go through an approval process, and the entire point is to make them more natural local landscaping that are meant to like really help out with the local pollinators. People go through so much work to certify a backyard that it's actually a selling point in the Portland marketplace if you've gone through the process. Now, number 12 is something that just happened, but it's right on Mount Tabor, which is a dormant volcano with beautiful views of downtown Portland, huge, massive water reservoirs. There's a soapbox derby that happens there every single year, and it's happened since 1996. So this is kind of a fun, artistic little tradition that Portland's done for many decades. Now we're halfway through the list here. We're gonna get to 24. Before we get all the way there, I just want to let you know that if you're thinking of moving to Portland, Oregon, or any of its suburbs, I'm here to walk you through not only all the weird quirks that we're talking about today, but to talk about what it's like to get from A to Z from wherever you are and make sure that relocation happens as seamlessly, as smoothly, and as stress-free as possible. I help viewers like you all the time. We chat over coffee, Zoom, you can shoot me a text, you can give me a phone call, you can even shoot me an email. We have these conversations all the time about what their main concerns are, what the right neighborhood is for them, and really go over that A to Z process to make sure you feel heard and to make sure that you have a plan in place when it comes time to making a home purchase in our area. Now, number 13 was actually made famous by Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and this is the Burnside Skate Park under the Burnside Bridge. This bad boy was constructed in 1990 using concrete, like illegally under the bridge. But this has really ended up crafting an iconic world-renowned skate park that's really come to form Portland's do-it-yourself and gritty punk culture. Now the 14th thing is people that would actually say they would prefer walkability and bikeability over commutability and like the ease of driving a car. Now some common strips where home buyers are really finding some great bikeable and walkable areas are places like the Hawthorne Strip, the Belmont area, the Mississippi Avenue Strip. Now believe it or not, but even though most people will move up to Vancouver, Washington for the commute lifestyle, like they really care more about how close they are to work or home from a car perspective, Uptown Vancouver, just north of the new downtown waterfront, is actually becoming a very bikeable, walk-heavy neighborhood that a lot of folks are flocking to. Now, number 15, a thing that you're probably only going to see in Portland, Oregon, is people paddleboarding with their dogs on board. You'll see like in Selwood, where there's the Selwood Riverfront Park, people jumping on paddleboards, kayaks, watercraft with their dog wearing a life jacket. And just like people have their dogs at the pub culture, this is just yet again another reminder that Portland is massive on their dog culture. And number 16 is all about Salt and Straw ice cream, because Salt and Straw is honestly a well-deserved Portland institution. And while their ice cream prices are a little bit steeper, I would say it's well worth the experience of going to a place that serves up ice cream flavors like blue cheese and pear or bone marrow and cherry. Now, number 17, which is something you're probably only going to see in Portland, Oregon, is that our recycling rules are a little bit strict and tight, so much so that if you're moving here, some people will actually get recycling anxiety. Now, it is worth noting that Portland's conversion rate on recycling is over 60%, whereas the nationwide average is closer to 32%. But a thing to know is that when it comes to the recycling laws, it can almost take like a PhD when it comes to knowing the differences of what you want to sort out in which container. Now, number 18 is that while we did talk about the system development charges getting dropped for the next couple of years, buying new construction in Portland proper is still fairly difficult. So if you are looking for new construction and you're wanting a lot more options available, I'd be looking at massive master plan communities like Reed's Crossing, which is out in Washington County, just outside of Portland proper, or going down south to a place like Frog Pond in Wilsonville. Now you can also head north where communities like Camas, Washougal, and obviously Vancouver have a whole lot of new construction opportunities as well. But if you're looking for new construction in Portland, you're gonna have to have a little bit more of a narrow search, or maybe have a few neighborhoods within your range that you're okay living in. While we still have our institutions designated for like keeping art within four walls, like the Portland Art Museum, art really does break boundaries in the Portland area. And as a fellow English major who's enjoyed everything from theater to opera to really going out and enjoying a good rock show or band, Portland has so much art and culture at your disposal that you're honestly not going to know where to start, and the prices are honestly so much better than a lot of major cities. Now, number 20, we actually did a whole video on this, but it still kind of blows my mind, honestly. It really does, in that you could feel like you're in a national park just 5 minutes from downtown Portland. What other major city across the nation can you be like literally sitting in what feels like what is old growth forest with streams going right next to you, and yet you're just 5 minutes from the main urban core? We have 275 parks and counting across the Portland area that provide green space, play areas, massive green fields, huge green trees that just make our city, when you're looking at it from a satellite map, the greenest city in the entire United States. And there's another thing that makes Portland unique, in that we're known as Bridge City and Stumptown. So starting with Bridge City, number 21 is that we've got 12 different bridges spanning over the Willamette River, and this splits our west and our east side, while the west side is kind of the hilly, more treed area. The east side is where you're going to see a lot more of the pub crawls and the hipster culture. And we're known as Stumptown. People don't know this, but it's actually because when people moved in, the pioneers moved in like over 100 years ago, they completely razed the city, and there were so many trees that were razed, chopped down, that only stumps were left. Thus it was named Stumptown. So the Green City got its beginnings in clearing all the trees in the area. Now, I've actually seen this one changing in like recent years, but it used to be a huge thing that even though we have like over 150 days of rain in Portland, that nobody would pop an umbrella. In fact, if you pop an umbrella on a rainy day, you're almost immediately pointed as an outsider. Now, I really feel like that has changed a lot with the influx of people that have moved here. You don't hear that as often as you did like a decade ago, where people would make it like almost like this thing where they're like, I will not use an umbrella just to really make sure I'm identified as a Portlander. That's disappeared a little bit more in recent years, and honestly, if you come here with an umbrella, I'm not going to make fun of you, and if anybody does, I mean, you're kind of the smart one in the situation if you think about it. Now, number 23, which really sets Portland apart, and it's something that you're probably not going to see in any other city, is that our line camping for brunches can extend for hours. We're talking about showing up to places like Pine State Biscuit or Screen Door, where people will snake the line out for hours around the bend. And I personally think that it's worth going to at least a few times if you're really wanting to experience some really great places in Portland for brunch. Now, number 24 is actually a story of something that I experienced that I think really encapsulates the Portland spirit. The first 23 were more things that myself and other people have observed having lived here for over 24 years. But this one is kind of a cool story. I was living in a southeast Portland neighborhood, Brentwood, Darlington, which is a huge up-and-coming neighborhood. And I had some punk rockers that lived just a couple houses down. They would have huge, not sold out, because I think they did like rock concerts for free, but you know, the entire street would be completely packed out with cars, and people would flock over and just draw in these massive crowds on Friday nights. And they actually had really good music. I mean, I say this as somebody that's not the biggest punk rock fan, but they were really, really good. Now, needless to say, like, you know, some people would be a little bit disturbed with having a punk rock band as neighbors, but I actually thought it was really cool, and this is the part that encapsulates Portland, is that on Christmas Day, we got a card from the lead person in the band, and he just wrote a Christmas card saying, hey, sorry for the noise, but just really showed that he was beyond like a cool grungy guy in a cool punk band, is that he had a heart as well. And I think that's a lot of what you'll find in Portland, is that people have, you know, kind of that gritty, grungy side, but they also have a ton of heart, and they have a ton of, well, artistic flair as well. So these are things that kind of encapsulate Portland. Hopefully it helped you kind of maybe think about what Portland's like. You know, obviously there's not really a great way to put Portland into one box, and so these ranged over a whole different plethora of things. But if you're thinking about moving to Portland, Oregon, or any of its suburbs, to include Vancouver, Washington, up in Washington state, you know, let's jump on the phone right here. You can give me a call, a text. We can jump on a Zoom call. We can grab coffee at one of the many great Portland coffee shops, or you can even shoot me an email, and we can go over what your specific neighborhood is. Because honestly, there are just so many different strokes for so many different folks in all of these areas. You know, there's over 1 million different people between Portland and Vancouver, and I can tell you that there is a huge wide range of different sorts of people living all over the Portland metro area. I've even helped people get into homes at the coast, up north into like Amboy area, down south into Salem, and then of course up into the mountains of Mount Hood. And even those areas have massively different people. So if you're thinking about moving here, let's jump on that phone call and see what your best place is. And as always, thanks for watching today's video. If you're thinking about moving to our area, then definitely hit that subscribe button. Watch this video next, and I'll see you next week.